computer. Welcome everybody to Crystals with Jeannette. We're very excited to have her on board. We're glad that she could be on the call. You're in for a treat because of her extensive background with crystals and with the science part plus just the play part and the jewelry part. And so it's a she's got a beautiful set of PowerPoint for you. We're going to have question and answer at the end. So if everybody could mute themselves, and then I'm going to start the PowerPoint, and Jeanette's going to take it away.
Where's the PowerPoint?
Just a minute. I got it. I have to share screen and then bring up the PowerPoint. And then move to the first one, and then let me see. Do you want it on slideshow?
Yes, please.
Like that? Okay, there you go.
It came out a little bit funny, but that's okay. So hopefully you can all see me, and you'll be able to see the slides as we go along. So welcome. I tried really hard to put together something that fit the description that Cindy set out to you, because apparently these were requests that people were making. So I decided to focus on 3 things: clearing, using crystals to boost immunity, etc., and how you can use them to add to your protection from energies. So let's start with the next slide, please. So the first few things I'm going to do is cover a few basics about crystals. A few of you have taken crystal courses with me before, but a lot of you haven't, and I'm not going to give you a university course in geology, but I just want to cover a few points. Then I'm going to go over a simple way of programming and clearing with crystals, which you can all use. And then I'm going to talk about 6 crystals that I chose that fit with the topics that you asked me to share with you. We'll have a little time for Q&A, and then my plan is that I'll do a crystal healing meditation remotely with all of you, so you'll have a chance to just lie there and suck it up, okay?
Oh, wow.
Next slide, please. So here we have a picture of a whole bunch of different crystals, and you can see that many of them have similar colors and textures and things, and there's lots of criteria for identifying and sorting them, and color is only one of the many. But the key thing here is that every crystal is a pure substance, and it has a specific chemical formula and a highly organized atomic structure. So, for example, salt, table salt, which we'll come to in a minute, is sodium and chlorine, whereas iron pyrite, which looks like this, is also the same shape, but it's iron and sulfur. So the colors will vary. The shapes are the same, or you can have the same colors and different shapes and other properties. So it's a whole science, a protocol for just naming and identifying crystals, and we're certainly not going to have time for any of that in this class. But just I want you to be aware that the chemical combination gives each crystal its unique properties that we can then use as an application into our healing work. Next slide. Okay, so as I said, sodium chloride, which is just basic table salt, you all are familiar with its tiny little cubic structure. And the cubes are related to a smaller level, what we call a unit cell. So you can see on the left diagram, we have some sodium ions and some chlorine ions, and they bond together alternately and electronically to form these little cells that continue to build on one another and form salt crystals. And the ones that you get in your table salt are pretty tiny, but if you been to any salt mines, etc., you can get really great big huge cubes. Not commonly, but they do occur. And when they start building into this three-dimensional structure, it's called a crystal lattice. And it's a characteristic of many different crystals, but not all crystals. Next slide, please. I almost tried to change it myself. So the reason that I'm sharing this with you is that the different kinds of elements that form into the crystal, and then the way they crystallize alter the properties of what that crystal can do or be used for. So for example, if they have no kind of like regular repeating structure, so it's kind of like a melt or a pour, things like jasper, agate, opals, obsidian are all examples of that. They're called amorphous. So if you look at the structure, the second on the left, it's just kind of random. And the properties of this particular type of crystal are very different from the one on the right, which has a three-dimensional or a two-dimensional and then a three-dimensional structure. And the one on the right is actually a sheet of quartz. And quartz is silicon and with 4 oxygens. So it's an SiO4 repeating unit. And if you look at the hexagonal structure of the two-dimensional quartz, you can see that they form this, it looks like a honeycomb with these nice little hexagons. And then if you move to the other one, we have the three-dimensional characteristic structure of a quartz crystal. So I have one here for you to look at. This is a nice big one. But this structure is because the tiny little unit cells on the left cool slowly and organize into these hexagons, which then build together to form these large crystals. And so you ask, why do I care? Next slide. So when they form in these organized structures, especially quartz, but there's other ones that I'll give you examples to later, they are, when you touch them, so it's just by itself, not much happens, but when I touch it, I actually stimulate something we call the piezoelectric effect. And it just means, you know, electricity flows with pressure. And so an example would be that if you have a sponge and you squeeze it, all the water will flow out. So when you squeeze certain crystals, such as quartz, you stimulate a flow of electricity. And this is the way in which quartz and other similarly structured crystals amplify or add to whatever it is that we are trying to do with the crystal. So they act as like speakers, make the sound louder. A crystal used properly can amplify our intentions. Does that make sense?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so another example is, which I'm very fond of, is the bone. So our bones are an organic crystalline matrix. So it's calcium, phosphate, and other minerals that form this three-dimensional structure with lots of pores in it for generation of red blood cells, but also for the structural integrity of our skeletal system. And so why would I bring that up in conjunction with the piezoelectric effect? There's no test. Well, our bones are stimulated to grow and repair when we put pressure on them. So walking or weight-bearing exercise strengthens our bones from the time as babies, you know, we have rubbery bones, and then when they start walking, the bones become more consolidated, and then as we age, it gets, you know, more and more the cartilage gets replaced by the bone matrix. But if we stop doing weight-bearing exercise, and we also have maybe some dietary issues with calcium intake, etc., then our bones become brittle, and because we're older, they don't have the cartilage to replace them, and then we get osteoporosis. Isn't that interesting? I think it is. Next slide. So this is an example of a crystal on the left, which has specific electrical charges. Then you touch it, and I mean, obviously we're not squeezing it visibly that much, but it causes the electric flow, and then it changes the electrical charge, and this causes the ions like calcium and phosphate to move in and form on the crystal matrix of the bone. I think I left out the other slides, but there, you have other crystals like kyanite, which is a pyroelectric, which means fire. So when you strike it, it gives off sparks. So kyanite used to be used in spark plugs. You have other crystals that are photoelectric. So the photovoltaic cells in the solar panels are substances that will be stimulated by light to form electric currents. So all of the crystals that are used in our technology, like computers and transistors and etc., all are used by technology and science that the crystals will transform electrical charges by various means of being stimulated. Okay, and that's a well-known scientific fact. And it also explains a bit why I was very resistant to use crystals when I first started doing my healing work, because I was looking at them from a wholly academic perspective. So next slide.
Jeanette, can I just add that a lot of these people have been on for tuning forks, and one of the things we do with tuning forks is put it on a clear quartz crystal. So this really shows the middle one, the clear quartz, the tuning fork going on, amplifying it. You can see with that chart, that's another example of using a tuning fork with a clear quartz crystal, how it amplifies and impacts the bone, because we do that on the spine.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and there's other ways in which other things like essential oils that the crystals can work with as well. So it amplifies intention as well as whatever else is going on. So another example of the piezoelectric effect is those of us who are old enough to remember record players. You know, the little needle would go up and down over the grooves. And what happens is that you had the cheap ones had quartz, but the more expensive ones, which I remember my mom being so thrilled with, were diamond. But as they went up and down the grooves, they changed the electrical signals, which went to the speaker and changed the sound. It's a piezoelectric effect. Using electricity creates sound.
Wow.
Next one. Okay, so that's kind of all the technical part. I just wanted to give you something to hang this on so that there's some rationale for what we could call normally, or what many healers call magic, and or you know, can't explain it. So there actually is science supporting how this works. Now, generally speaking, when you buy crystal in the store, or you know, when you just pick one up, they're often not clear. So it's important to have your crystals vibrant with no condensed or congested energy in them. And so you can do that by putting them in sunlight, running them under water. Moonlight works for ones that are sensitive to the sun, like amethyst and citrine are sun sensitive. And some crystals, obviously like salt crystals, you don't want to put in the water because then they'll dissolve. So you have to be careful how you clear them. But it's important to have them feeling vibrant so that they can work more effectively for you. Sound like tuning forks and crystal bowls can also be used to clear them if you don't have the light or the water. I try to put my crystals out on my deck in the sun, usually about every month or two, but especially if I've had a lot of clients in a short period of time, I will do it after every couple of clients. I don't use all my crystals on every person because I have quite a lot. But generally when I feel that they're looking a little tired, then I do that. And we have a lot of rain here, so moonlight's a little tricky, but then I can clear them with my tuning forks, etc. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So it's, it's like having a shower and, washing the goop off of you. So the crystals need to be cleaned too. Next slide. So before you go to use a crystal, so let's say you go to a store or someone gives you a crystal, it's a good idea to program it so that the amplification that it will do for you doesn't get stuck on intentions or frequencies that don't serve you or the highest good of your clients. So generally you can just sit and hold your crystal for a little while and set the intention that it's you're filling it with divine light and love, and so that it will work for the highest good of yourself and the client. And so this is like considered to be a pre-programming. So I do that with all of my crystals. In my crystal course, I actually have people, as they open their surprise crystal packages in sequence, I have them sit and connect with each crystal. So it's an intuitive kind of thing, but once you start doing it, you'll find that each crystal has different information to share with you or helps you open different doors. And so it's practice and trusting your intuition that what the crystal's telling you is what it is you need it for. And I don't like to be prescriptive. When I teach the introductory classes, I start off with, these certain crystals for this chakra, etc., because there is sort of general trends. But then once you get familiar and get to know them, you may find that your crystal, you might want to use, say, one on the sacral chakra, and then your crystal that you were going to use is say, no, I need to be on the throat or whatever. So I have reached a point where I just use my intuition, and if the crystal argues with me, I usually let the crystal win. And maybe that sounds weird, but that's kind of what I do. Has anybody got any questions on that so far?
Unmute yourself if you have a question.
Do they know how to do that?
Oh, actually, I have a question.
Yes.
But it was when you were talking about clearing crystals, and if it was sensitive to sunlight, you said you could do it in moonlight. Does it have to be a full moon or any moon?
Well, a new moon doesn't have any light, but once there's a bit of moonlight, that'll work.
Okay.
Okay. But you can also, as I said, use a tuning fork or a bowl to clear it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not too many that can't take sunlight, but there's about 3 or 4 that are.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm in a closet. That's the reason I close it out. It looks like I'm in the jail.
Is it Mary talking?
Yes, it is Mary talking.
All I see is black. Oh, there you are.
Yeah,
I see the closet.
I'm in a closet. It looks like a jail, so there's not much to be seen, which is why I try to close you out. But so you're saying crystals should be clear, and yet when I bought one in particular, I don't know if it will show here. Yeah, right there. It's a rose crystal.
Rose quartz.
Rose quartz, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot of opacity to it. It's got striata in it. But for what you were saying here it really should be clear, and that this then.
No, I don't mean clear like transparent. I mean cleared energetically, honey.
Okay.
Yeah. Lots of crystals aren't clear because of the chemical composition. The ability of light to be reflected or refracted by a crystal is also one of its properties, and it's also contingent upon its chemical structure or composition, and also impurities.
Okay, well, that helps to know that clearing is meant not visual, but
Yeah, I was talking
energetically.
energetically. Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry, I didn't make that distinction.
That's okay. Someone who's new to it can ask that question, like me.
Oh, I want you to ask questions. I don't want this just to be didactic. And so then let's say you've cleared your quartz crystal. Then you can program it if you want or not. I don't tend to program mine. I would rather that they are just open to working with me and supporting whatever it is myself or the client or the situation requires. But for example, I could use a quartz crystal to ask it to help with removing congested energy. So I would, let's say my wrist was sore. So our chakra would be clockwise, but you go counterclockwise and around the area, say for pain or congestion, and then you just pull it out. So that's a little vortice kind of work. Or you can use it like magnetic clearing to comb. So you just move it in alignment with the magnetic field. So sometimes if someone's, say, got cancer or very congested from trauma, I'll have a quartz crystal in each hand, and I'll just do magnetic clearing all the way down their body from above the head to below the feet. The same pattern of magnetic clearing that we use in, you learn in level 1. I might not use it as many times. I pay attention to how the client is responding because it's more powerful. So you can hold your crystals in your hand as you're working to use them for specific tools. So if you think of these as, you know, helpers or adjuncts to your work, then it becomes much more fun. Does that make sense? Okay. And so if somebody had, I use it also for wound sealing to help, you know, bring the field together, and then pressing on it, pain management, ultrasound, you know, on my eyes for my wrinkles. You can tell it's not working so great, but so anything where you're doing a technique that you feel you can be supported with crystals, you can hold them, specifically quartz usually, in your hand, and use them as a amplifier of your work. Okay.
Hi, I just had a question. It's Susan Reed.
Hi.
Hi, I was wondering then, how do you go about to choose a crystal? Do you do a meditation and preparation? I do a lot of work with cancer patients. And do you do this ahead of time with the intention of, because I don't know what kind of cancer they're going to have or who I'm actually going to see. Can you tell me a little bit about how you choose your crystals and what kind of arguments you have with them and how, you know, you navigate with that?
Well, there's probably 100 different crystals that I use, and I choose them based on my intuition and my experience, would be the best way to say it. Some of the ones that I'm going to talk about specifically in the next part of this PowerPoint would be good choices for cancer, as well as the other avenues that I'll be talking about. But you can't go wrong with quartz. Quartz is one of the stronger amplifiers, and that very good for getting the chemicals out of the field, realigning the magnetic field and helping boost any of the pain, removing the pain and everything. So in terms of what set I would use for what patients, I would need to go into a lot more detail that I don't think I have in the hour of the class that we're doing today. But start with quartz and start working up with your comfort zone. And amethyst we'll be talking about as well. So maybe by the end, you'll have a little more insight as to what you could start working with. When you purchase crystals, I do it also intuitively, like I'll go into the store and just kind of walk around, and then the ones I'm drawn to are usually the ones I buy if I can afford them. I mean, obviously I really like the $2,000 ones, but I don't have any of those. Is that helpful?
Yes, Jeannette, this is Robert. I have a question as well.
Mm-hmm.
When you mention the quartz, do you use mostly rose quartz or clear quartz, or it doesn't really matter?
I mostly, in the earlier part, I've mostly been talking about regular clear quartz, but you can have it smoky, you can have it pink like in rose quartz, and then you can also have amethyst, etc. It depends on the impurities. Rose quartz is often more associated with higher frequencies of love, so it's good with the heart chakra or people that are having self-love issues. I always have big pieces of rose quartz in my healing room, and sometimes I put them on the client. Sometimes it's just there to keep the love stimulated, I guess would be the best way. So again, it's more what you feel that client might need from you at the time. So just how we have a client come to us for support, or either physically or remotely, and we choose what energy techniques we feel will help them the most. It's the same with the crystals. You have kind of like a baseline of properties that they have, but then you also weave it into what you need for that specific client. So it's kind of a dance, and I know that's not particularly helpful, but it evolves. So like for me, but personally, I didn't really start doing any work with crystals until the last couple of years of my teaching in the school system. So probably about 2006, 2007. I mean, I had tons of crystals in my geology lab, but like I said, I just sort of didn't think of them as being useful in my healing work. And then I went to a crystal workshop it was a 2-day workshop. And I was so overwhelmed with the impact and the support that the crystals gave the healers that were doing the work that I decided I needed to look at it more thoroughly. And so I started looking for my first crystal, which was a big quartz wand, and it was just, it spoke to me. And then I experimented with my family. They're my good go-to guinea pigs. So I said, okay, I want to give you a treatment with and without using the quartz crystal. And they were like, oh yeah, right, what else are you going to do, Mom? And then they all said that it was like I was turbocharged. They could just feel more power with the work and the results when I used the crystals. So again, it goes down to amplifying an intention. But starting with rose quartz or regular quartz, you can't go wrong.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to just go over the properties of some of the crystals that fit the questions that you asked. So first one's obviously quartz. So we can use quartz to clean and shift energy. We can use it to release blocked emotions and bring a sense of calm and spiritual peace. So if, for example, someone said to you that they were feeling very fearful or anxious, you can actually use it on the solar plexus and sacral chakras. To I move it clockwise with the chakra. I'll show you on my throat. So let's say this person was having trouble with expressing their thoughts, then I would just move the crystal within their chakra clockwise and then pull out things. And I might actually do a backwash where I go back and pull things out and just smooth it along to help clear that particular area. Quartz helps increase your clarity of thought and sharpness of perceptions. So it's ideal for meditation and divination. I'm not sure if I said that right. And then it also, as I talked to you earlier, amplifies and strengthens the aura as well as the energy of other stones or other things. So like Cindy was saying, you can put a tuning fork on a crystal and it will amplify the impact of the tuning fork. And it also, if you use it to comb the aura or add it into your magnetic clearing, then it just gives the aura more bounce. You know how as people become ill or, depleted, their auric field doesn't have that spring to it, where someone who's radiant and healthy, it's like, boing, oh, they're okay. So the quartz will help you with that, giving their field some vibrancy. Is that okay so far? Any questions?
One quick question. This is Mary. When you're saying you're using it across the patient, you said you'd actually put it on them. I guess I'm asking, do you actually physically lay it on them while you're doing other things, or it's just in your hands in the presence while you're over those particular areas? Would the same thing happen if you had a small bench underneath your table and positioned it in that respective place?
I use many different ways and sometimes all of them together. So sometimes I'll have in my hand, I have different grids that I lay out on the body. And then there's also, I have crystals in my room. Sometimes I have a layout underneath my table. I know people also tape them to the table, but I've found that doesn't work very well for me. So the thing with crystals, especially when you're starting out as a healing touch practitioner, you want to have confidence that your healing touch techniques have efficacy, because they do. It's incredible work. That's why I chose to go into healing touch. But after I know a client, or if it's someone who I know is comfortable with what I would call an add-on, then I ask them, I'd really like to help you with X, Y, and Z today. Are you okay if I use some crystals as well as the healing work? And so I check in with them first, because some people start thinking it's pretty spooky. So, but at the same time, you can, as I said, hide them under your table or around your room. So full on healing touch session with me, with someone who is comfortable with all the different things that I bring to the table, will have crystals in different places on them, as well as in my hands. And then also I use essential oils and my guides and my healing touch techniques and other stuff that I've been guided to bring forward. Is that better, Mary?
Yes, that helps.
Where are you in your training, honey?
I'm an HTPA. I'm a level 4.
Okay, so yeah, you can't put crystals and stuff in your documented sessions yet.
Not yet, okay.
After you're certified, then because we want you to know, or want you to become really consolidated in your healing touch. And so you can add on to it later. Or if you did feel strongly guided to use crystals, just don't write it in your documentation, but I didn't say that.
I didn't hear that, but the question I do have, where is the ethics in having them in the area and knowing that they are working if you do not involve the client's permission to use them? How does that balance out?
If you were working in your garden while you're doing a treatment and there's rocks there, would you feel you had to tell people that you had rocks in your garden?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so I mean, my crystals are all over my house, in my windowsills and stuff. It's not too messy though, I don't think. Pam and Cindy, you can ask them later when I'm not listening. But it's like they're part of the decor, right? I have them in my garden, in my front entrance. So I've never considered that unethical, because lots of people have ornaments and plants, and I have crystals. Does anybody else have a thought on that? Maybe Betty or Cindy?
Jeanette,
Yeah.
I was just wondering, because it's with intention, if you haven't engaged them or invited the crystals to join the session and you haven't put that intention out there, then is that a piece of it?
Might be, yeah. I mean, sometimes they're just there, right?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
They're not any, to me, the crystals aren't any different than the guides and the fairies and all the other people that come.
Can I say something, Jeanette?
Yes, Yolanda.
From an ethical standpoint, we always have informed consent, right? We
Yeah.
always have to ask clients, like you said, we have to ask permission to use the crystal. But if they're part of your environment, and as I'm not sure who said, you don't invite them in, then you don't have a problem. If you invite them in without asking permission, then you have an ethical issue. Is that clear?
Yes, so you would say that if we don't tell a client that we are inviting our guides to support our healing work, that's unethical?
Good question. I always tell my clients that I don't work alone, that I always ask, guides and my higher power to work with me. I don't work alone, and I do tell clients that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can think of crystals as guides. They do have an energy and an intelligence once you start working with them more.
Yeah, it's just that, the issue of informed consent is really, really important. And people can come back with just any ridiculous thing and start creating havoc for you.
Well, I did say at the very beginning that I asked the people if I think they're open to it. I asked if it's okay if I put crystals on them.
That's right. That's right.
So that's all you have to do, or that I work with crystals. But if you have crystals sitting around your garden or your house, I don't think you need to.
No, if they're sitting around, you don't have to. If you invite them in during the session, then you should tell the people of the possibility that you're going to do that.
Or you can just have it global.
Yeah.
But you're working intuitively with spirits and other beings. And I mean, I would include crystals in that.
That's right. And the clearer you are with people, the more they will have confidence in you and the less problem you're going to have.
Yeah.
Eliminate them from the very beginning, I say.
I think
I'm done.
key thing is your intentionality. If it's part of your decor in your office, I mean, it's there. If you're going to use it, then you say, okay, now I'm going to use this. Are you okay with it? So I think it's all about our intentionality.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, you know, part of the reason that I started developing courses on crystals is I wanted to take the woo-woo out of the work, right? It's another tool that has efficacy that can be, when used properly, can help us with our work.
And I think that's the key, Jeanette, is saying, you know, when it's used properly and with people's permission. I think that's the key.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Betty. And Yolande. Okay. So then the third part of our talk, I don't know what the time is, Cindy. Am I doing okay for time? I don't want to.
Yeah, 8:15. You're doing great.
8:15.
In Ontario, that would be
Oh, okay.
5:15
Okay.
where you are.
Okay, sorry. 8:15. 3 hours.
You're having a good time.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one that I wanted to share with you is amethyst. So I've got a little piece of amethyst here. So these are like decorated rocks. This is actually an amethyst candle holder. So I have, you know, some little pieces like this around because they're pretty, but also I have amethyst that I use with clients. And it helps.
There's like 500 stones, right, Jeanette? You got like 500 stones on your property in your house.
Somewhere, maybe more. And so it helps with creative thinking and spiritual awareness. And in some of my angel workshops, I talk about the overlap between crystals and colors and angels. So Archangel Michael is associated with purples and cobalt blues, and amethyst is a stone that for me is very reminiscent of him because he is a protective angel, and amethyst helps protect against psychic attack and helps reduce nightmares. So if you have clients with PTSD or something and they are having a lot of sleep disturbances, etc., you could encourage them or just suggest that they might try putting a piece of amethyst by their bed. If they're, depending on, you know, their openness to it, you can have them use it to feel protected, but you can, you know, again, you have to be cognizant of where that person is in terms of their relationship with using other things besides healing touch. They also help ease tension, headaches, physical and emotional pain. So it's a really nice healer stone. And it's also good with helping combat addictions. So if someone came with a lot of physical or emotional pain or a combination, it often goes together. I might use a lot of amethyst to add to the treatment that I was going to be doing with them. I like to use amethyst if I'm doing bone chakra work or, sorry, that's anatomy for healers. The instructors will know what that is, but 4 5s. Well, if you're working with their root chakra and building strength and safety, amethyst can fit very nicely in with that as well as people who are just fearful. So it makes them less fearful. And it helps act as a protection for psychic attack, which a lot of people, I don't know about this group in particular, but I've been talking lately to a lot of instructors in other regions as well as the Canadian instructors, and there's been a big uptick in clients that are feeling overwhelmed and under attack or feeling all the negative energy and the heaviness of what's going on with the COVID-19. And so amethyst can be a good stone to help them become a little lighter and clearer and less vulnerable. Next slide, please. Another one is garnet. And garnet is, so I have a piece here. It's, this particular garnet has it's a crystal garnet. It's not common like this. And it's a dodecahedron, so it's like a kind of like a soccer ball in all its facets, and it's an iron oxide ore. And it's very hard. It's used like in sandpaper and stuff, but it's also considered an energizing and regenerating stone, partly because it's the color of the blood and it works with the root chakra. And it says it can enhance your love life, so you might want to try that part out. I don't know. It used to be set into the shields and sword hilts of warriors to give them strength in battle. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense because it's an earth-based stone. Like the core of our earth is primarily iron and iron compounds. And that grounding and bringing yourself to the center of the earth with something like garnet is bringing up your power. Some of you have seen me do the Maori warrior stance, you know, that where you just like, you know, they get really grounded and centered and so that you become immutable. So garnet can help with that, and it can help strengthen our survival instinct and bring courage and hope. So it's got a lot of traits, and it can be used in various settings to work towards that. So often I put it on the root chakra or in that area, or sometimes at the feet. And it goes well with hematite as well, which I'm not talking about in this particular presentation. Next slide, please, Cindy. So another one that I've only started working with in the last couple of years is shungite. So I have a piece of it here as well, and you can see that the piece that I'm holding up is really shiny, and it actually has, I don't know if you can see it, something called conchoidal fracture. So like if you hit it, it splits and it has like these sort of shell-like lines on it. And this is the noble shungite. It's the highest concentration of the carbon, and it's quite hard but also brittle. You can't like carve it. And then there's other kinds of shungite, which is shown in the picture, which are duller. And this is an example of a star tetrahedron or a Merkaba that's made out of shungite, but it's been carved. They don't grow like this normally. And it has less of the fullerenes, which are the unique property. So a fullerene is basically a carbon molecule with many carbons. So the first one that was discovered was called the Buckminster fullerene, and it's like a soccer ball, and it's made of 60 carbons forming a ball. And then there's millions and millions of them together to form the shungite, either in the less refined form or in the more noble form. They were originally discovered, I'm not finished, Cindy, sorry. You flicked way ahead. So shungite was actually discovered. There used to be a spa in Russia where people went to when they were really sick with things like tuberculosis. And they found that the water flowing out of the mineral openings that was used in the spa was actually flowing past or through a deposit of the shungite. And they started realizing that this water had some incredible healing properties because people would get a lot better after they'd been there, and the water started being sold, etc. So the Russians actually did quite a lot of research. There's actually a book out called Shungite, and you can get it as an ebook. It's not too expensive that way. Reciting or quoting many studies that have been done in Russia as well as France about its antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and antibacterial properties. So it's a healing stone, and I think it probably is very helpful with keeping your immune system strong during the COVID. It also helps bring through positive energies, and it has high electrical conductivity, just like the quartz when you touch it. So it helps protect against electromagnetic pollution, and it also supposedly supports spiritual growth. We've found, some of you know I work with Franny and Tim doing some channeled work, and we've been using the shungite in different grids, and found that it's very powerful. I still have a lot to explore about it, but if you choose to purchase it, I would recommend you try and get the Noble, but it's very expensive, well, depending where you go, but because it's not too many places in the world that it's found. That's probably enough information. Next slide. Any questions before I move to labradorite? So Cindy,
I have a question.
Cindy's going to show her labradorite piece because I can't find mine, and I forgot to go and get one from Gayla. So if you had a sphere there, a labradorite ball. Yeah, so that's a nice piece. So labradorite is originally from Labrador. There's been deposits found elsewhere, but Labrador was where it was first discovered, and it's beautiful. Some of it is a lot darker than others, but this particular photograph on the slide is showing its kind of turquoise iridescent colors, and it's a really good stone for helping with negative energy. It helps, I actually use it in conjunction with other stones on different chakras. And it also, again, helps protect the aura to help deflect energies that will interfere with its integrity. And it also, it helps support what I would call the membrane or the bubble of our outer auric field to keep it vibrant and whole. It helps with stress, blood pressure, and metabolism on the sort of other end of things. So this is, again, another really nice stone to have. And you don't have to have big, giant ones either. The smaller ones still have efficacy. Next one, please. And then black tourmaline is, I have a nice big piece of it here. I actually keep this by my computer, just in front of it, because it really helps with EMF. Well, actually, I have tourmaline and shungite at my computer, and it helps shield against negative energies. I don't know about all the fire departments, but I know there's several in BC where a lot of the firefighters wear black tourmaline pendants to help with all the EMF that they're exposed to with their work with the radios and other equipment that they have to use. And some people put black tourmaline on their phones, their mobile phones, and you can also get shungite protectors for your phones. Those of you who are into gardening, it can actually help with insects when you bury it in the ground. I haven't tried that yet. I usually just kind of brush them away. It helps with positive attitudes. So again, with people feeling dense and heavy and isolated, tourmaline, just meditating or sitting with some tourmaline can help that. And it also helps the immune system and reduces pain from arthritis and muscle aches and things. So I really quite fond of black tourmaline myself. I have quite a lot of it around. So this is another good stone. So basically, I've just given you what I call a snapshot of some of the crystals that you can work with, but there's a couple of pieces I want to reinforce with you. Is one that, we tend to think of a crystal as separate from our physical body, but remember, when we start in level 1, we start playing with the energy field between the palms of our hands and around our bodies, and crystals, as well as other living plants and animals, all have an energy field, and they have to do with the electrical and magnetic nature of all matter. So we're not really separate from crystals any more than we're separate from one another. And then, so the corollary of that is that, you know, our thoughts are also energy. And so the big piece of working with crystals as healing touch and sound and everything else is that our energetic thoughts and intentions can change the physical world, that it's not rigidly fixed and immutable. And I think as we continue to do our own work and work with others, we all become more comfortable with the possibilities of what we can accomplish in our work. Phew. So, does anybody have any questions, comments, etc.? We'll do that for a few minutes, and then I'll do the meditation, healing meditation with you.
Jeanette, it's Susan Atkinson. I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me? It's
Yes, I
Susan.
can.
Oh, okay. Hi. I'm fascinated with it, and I love this presentation. And so thank you. I just was wondering, my crystal, I haven't unpacked a lot of stuff that I moved, and my crystals are still packed away, but you've motivated me to go find them and dig them out and use them more. But is there one that can really helpful to block some negative energy? I moved into a row of townhouses, and the woman next door has decided that has a lot of negative energy, and I just like to be able to block it a little bit. And is there one crystal that you would recommend that would help to do that?
I'm getting black tourmaline. Put it on the wall, or put several pieces along the walls where you're adjoining.
Okay.
And then visualize the black tourmaline forming an energetic barrier that her lower frequency thoughts can't get through.
Awesome.
And just go, every time you think about it, just go and in your mind just build this beautiful gold wall of protection. And think of the tourmaline crystals as like, little crystal guardians.
Awesome. Because I just keep thinking positive thoughts and so on, but I just thought, well, there's some crystal that, so thank you very much. I'm going to try it.
Yeah, and if you don't have tourmaline, you can use amethyst or shungite or labradorite. It doesn't have to be tourmaline, but that was the one that came to me first when you asked me the question. So
yeah, I have a lot of amethyst. I love amethyst.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of amethyst too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Yeah, Jeanette, it's Betty. I have a question. Do you ever have put stones in your pocket as part of your protection when you're doing the work?
I don't particularly, but I always have a few pieces of usually black tourmaline, shungite, garnet, and maybe some quartz in a little pouch in my purse.
Okay.
It goes with me everywhere, and especially when I'm traveling, I like to have a few crystals. Just, I don't know, it's maybe like a combination of superstitious good luck charm and optimism that they really do something.
Oh, what the heck?
Exactly. The way I look at it, it can't hurt.
That's
And,
right. The other thing I just want to share to people, if they're using crystal pendulums, they really need to be careful. I've had experience with students working on me, and they start at the feet, and right then and there, all that energy goes directly to my head. Now, whether it was because the crystal wasn't clean, and I know I'm quite sensitive to the crystal, but just like that, I have to tell them, you have to grab one of my wooden pendulums. So it's just something for people to be aware of.
That's a very good point. I don't have that experience but I often use just, I have like these little angel crystal things that I got from Yolen's friend that I like to use. But people do have different kinds of fields and different sensitivities. So it's a good point. Thank you. Think of that. And I know you react quite physically to energy shifts, I remember.
What a surprise.
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Question is about turquoise.
Yes.
It's about the palm size of my palm.
Nice.
And I've had it for a few years. What can you share with me about turquoise?
Well, turquoise is often associated with the high heart, with soul and healing, and helping you manifest your soul purpose. So those are the first pieces that come to mind. It's a very warm, comforting kind of stone.
Okay.
It can help with grief, in my experience. But mostly, actually I used to have a really beautiful turquoise pendant, but a friend of mine was transitioning and she just kept wanting to hold it, so I just gave it to her. So I haven't had any in my, working capacity for a while, but it's a lovely stone to work with. Yeah, it's harder to find now too.
Yeah. The other one is Hopi tears.
You mean like Apache tears?
Could be, but yeah, probably Apache. I thought
the ones that I'm not familiar with Hopi tears, but I am with Apache tears, and they tend to be a black volcanic rock with tiny little gray pieces in them, and they tend to be grounding stones and healing in that respect.
Okay.
So they're similar to granite as well. And there's also, this is just about crystals, but there's many stones like granite and slate, etc., that have properties, but they're not a crystal. They're made up of a bunch of different minerals and crystals. So they become like a fusion of properties. So granite's the one that you probably most think of, but many of the other rocks can have properties as well.
Yeah, and I think I have it.
I remember bringing granite back for you.
I know, you helped me.
30 pounds of granite in my backpack to fly home.
The dumb stuff I made you do.
The other one is a meteor rock.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm tending towards the
tektite, yeah.
Yeah. So
the meteorites tend to help you. They can be protective, and they tend to help you do interdimensional work. I don't use mine much on clients. I keep it more for my own meditation.
Yeah.
Unless it was a client who was already working in other dimensions. But I don't have too many of those. More friends, though. I'll be a friend.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I have a question.
Why are you sorry?
I sort of tried to butt in before. I apologize.
Okay.
I thought you were finished. Okay, so here's my question. I have this shungite.
Yeah, and the flower of life. Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be Metatron's.
Yeah, Metatron's cube. It's part of the flower of life. Yes.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. I didn't know it had another name for it. And I was very excited when I got it. Mm-hmm. And I had it for about a month or so, and then I dropped it. Mm-hmm. And it cracked. Mm-hmm. So recently, I glued it back together again. I don't know if you can see the...
Yeah, I can. Mm-hmm.
Did I ruin it by crazy gluing it back together?
No, because you haven't, it's not a crystalline shungite. Like it's the softer one that can be carved because it's been etched and
Yeah.
stuff. So the minerals, the fullerenes that compose the shungite are still there.
Okay.
You might have fractured some of the tiny little crystal cell units, but
Mhm.
it's still okay.
It's still useful then.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
after I glued it back together again, then I thought, uh-oh, did I ruin it by gluing it? So
No, I don't think so. I
okay,
mean,
perfect.
it's not like it had a specific 3D lattice. Like, you know, if you put the
This.
broke this, then you have to keep. They would be better to be left separate. I've done that before,
Yes.
but I wouldn't worry about that because that kind of shungite's pretty amorphous. Doesn't have a rigid structure.
Okay, very good. Because I do like it. Like actually, I've been
Lovely.
keeping it in my pocket. I've just been walking around with it since I put it back together, and hopefully I don't drop it again.
Yeah.
So, okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeanette, we're getting a question. Would you be able to, oh, and then Angel has a question. Would you be open to doing more workshops on crystals that you and I could have a further discussion over either a 4-week series or a day? Like online. I know, like you've come here before.
I never thought of that. Yeah. And so what would I do? I'd put the kits together and mail them out for people?
No, I think they'd have to go buy the rocks at the
Yeah.
location. Would you be open to the discussion, and you and I can meet separately to
Now we can talk
discuss
about it later. People want
Yeah.
to do it. Yeah, I've taught the crystal course lots. This isn't even part of the crystal course much, really, is it, Cindy?
It's like the first hour.
Yeah.
Like an intro.
Is there any
Angel, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a similar question. I have this pendulum and it's rose quartz. I love it. And I dropped it on the floor and it cracked. And I did the same thing as our colleague here. I glued it together. I didn't use the crazy glue. I forget what type of glue I used. You can barely see where it's broken. And I wondered if I ruined it too. It still works really nicely. So
Angel, you can make a pendulum out of nuts and bolts or paper clips, right? The pendulum is just the responsiveness of a suspended object to the electromagnetic vortices of the chakras or the field. So you wouldn't have ruined the pendulum's ability to be a tool for you. You might have, damaged its feelings.
but I love it. So.
Yeah, so it's fine. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, are you guys ready for your meditation?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so please make yourself comfortable, and I will guide you through a meditation using the crystals that we've worked with. So I'm going to work with each of you collectively and holographically. So don't question it, just go with the flow. You might want to make sure that if you nod off, you won't fall off your chair or something. Okay, so is everybody ready? So let's just start with the breath. Breathing in the most beautiful golden light you can imagine. And exhaling and releasing. Breathing in the light and letting it go wherever it needs to go. And exhaling and letting go of all that no longer serves you. And as you sink deeper and deeper into a relaxated state, we'll set the first intention that you will continue to breathe in the light and exhale and release. You may have personal intentions that you'd like to set for yourself for this meditation. And so you can add that in right now to the collective, just quietly to yourself. And I invite all the spirits and guides that would like to be here to surround each of you and our whole group with their beautiful, loving presence. And we ask that the work for everyone tonight be for our all individual and collective highest good. And now, I want you to imagine that I am placing beautiful quartz crystal just above your crown chakra. It's pointing towards the heavens, away from your body. And I'm going to place another quartz crystal just below your feet, pointing to the core of the earth. So these two crystals identify your hara, as well as connect, amplify your field with the earth and the heavens. I'm going to place two more crystals of quartz, one just below each shoulder, pointing in a diagonal manner out from your body, and two more just below the knees, pointing diagonally towards the earth. So you now are sitting in a grid of 6 quartz crystals. These crystals are forming 2 triangles. One from your head or your crown chakra to the knees is your first triangle. And the other one from below your feet to just below your shoulders is the second triangle. And these 2 triangles together form a hexagon, just like the 6-sided figures that we looked at earlier on in the structure of quartz. And this hexagon is incredibly powerful because it sets the 2-dimensional map for the formation of a 3-dimensional crystal enveloping you, which is a Merkaba. So the one triangle, which is from the soles of your feet to your shoulders, visualize a line going up from the center of your body up to the heavens. And the other one, which is from your crown to your knees, in the center, visualize another line going to the core of the earth. And we're going to hold you or suspend you gently within this space capsule, if you like. Give yourself permission to just let go and float. You might feel yourself spinning a little bit. It's all right. Just breathe. You can slow at any time. And as you're spinning, feel the energies moving through your alignment, bringing in love, peace, healing, and connecting each of us to one another in these beautiful little Merkaba capsules. And while you're floating, suspended and connected, I'm going to place a piece of shungite over your root chakra, some black tourmaline at your sacral, labradorite on your solar plexus, amethyst on your heart, clear quartz on your throat, and garnet on your brow. I'm going to invite each of these crystals while you're suspended in your Merkaba to work with each of these chakras, clearing, releasing, providing each chakra with the energies it needs to be fully balanced, healed, and revitalized in all dimensions of space and time. Continue to relax and allow these crystals to support you in whatever ways you need in this time and place. And while the crystals are working with you, I'm going to invite angels and guides to begin angelic magnetic clearing from head to toe, just pulling off, releasing congested energies, fears, frustrations, fatigue, anything and everything that is interfering with your capacity to be at the highest possible frequency of your existence. And just allow them to just gently continue to move everything in time and space. Feel your immune system getting strong, your bones letting go of trauma, your thoughts moving to those of peace, your heart vibrating the highest frequencies of divine love, your throat expressing all the things that you've come here to teach others in this lifetime, speaking your truth, your brow keeping you tuned in and trusting your intuition that is brought to you through your loving guides and your soul's purpose. And now I'm asking the angels and the stones to work at whatever it is you need particular support with at this time. It could be something physical in your body. It could be emotional or mental memories that need to be released. Or it could be greater attunement with your spiritual gifts. Whatever it is, just trust that this is happening for you at this time and place. Keep breathing in the light, exhaling and releasing. Fully supported and suspended in your beautiful Merkabas. Light running through you. And now that you're fully relaxed, you might also ask the crystals and the guides. They have a message for you right now in this time and place. And set the intention that even though you're deeply relaxed, that when you come back, you'll remember what the message is for you. And then I also invite our hearts to send love to each other and continue to support all it is that we've come here to do in this lifetime. And so that we can support and work together as service to humanity. Breathing in the light, exhaling and releasing. And then I know you don't want to come back, but some people probably need to go. So I'm going to bring you back slowly, wiggling your fingers and toes. Maybe shaking a little bit. Whatever you need to do. And if you'd like to leave, that's totally fine. You can I recommend you drink some water and have a good sleep. And if you'd like to stay on for a little while,